What's your grade for the offseason? And I am going to give it an, especially if you're a roundup guy, then I'm going to just go ahead and say it. I'll own it. I'm going to give them an A- because I know that they want.
It's an 89.5 for you.
They want more of a defensive tilt in the outfield, and they didn't go get, like, they wanted Brandon Nimmo for that. They didn't get him. So is there anyone left? Do you want a Benintendi? Do you want, I don't know, do you want a Joey Gallo? I don't think so. So I don't know how they're going to address that need. I think they still want to do some things in their bullpen. The bullpen never excites people, but it wins games and loses games. And so I think there'll be little moves like that. But here's why I give it an A-, although I acknowledge what you just said, which is Stripling and Manaea don't bowl you over, and they did lose their ace. I understand that.
Yeah.
Here's why I'm less bothered by that than you. The San Francisco Giants, under Farhan Zaidi, if they've proven one thing, would you agree with me, Dibs? If they've proven one thing during their regime, it's that they can, every offseason, go get starting pitchers who you think, and then get production. They've never not pitched. Kevin Gausman wasn't an ace when they signed him. Then he suddenly was.
I will see your Gausman and return it with a DeSclafani.
Okay, that's fair. I'm not saying that they're 100%.
Right.
But they have never, in this regime, not been one of the top starting pitching teams in the league. And I would also, and I know where some minds will go, and this is fair, where you say, okay, let's say if they do have another overachieve type year, and let's say they do end up in the playoffs. Well, now who's your game 1, game 2 starter? Logan Webb, and then what? You're going to be going up against Verlander in game 2 with Sean Manaea? Well, here would be my response to that. First of all, yes, they have gotten pitchers coming off of bad years to overachieve, and maybe they'll find some again this year. Maybe DeSclafani will be healthy and be awesome again. I don't know. But here's the other thing. If you're sitting in first or second place in July, you can go get a pitcher. You can go get a starting pitcher. And I also think in the second half of the year, in their minds right now, Kyle Harrison, for all we know, he might be that dude.
You're hoping he is, because you don't want to give up assets to bring in another pitcher who's likely a rental.
Okay, one of the big questions also out there, and this is what I suggested a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. This is what I had heard, but we just weren't really sure. But Susan Slusser has just tweeted this out. One of the big questions that people got to after the excitement of Carlos Correa starts to set in. Well, what about Brandon Crawford? Susan Slusser has just tweeted that Brandon Crawford will move to third base this year. I really think the Giants prepped him for this. I think he knew they were going to go hard after Correa.
I should have asked Kapler that today at Starbucks.
I don't think he loves it. I think it mattered to Brandon that he be a career Giants shortstop, but I also think that Brandon Crawford is a pretty awesome team guy.
Yeah.
He's always been very dedicated to the Giants, and it doesn't surprise me that he's ready to do this. And, man, what a Swiss Army knife that becomes. Now you have somebody who hits left-handed who can play third base and is probably going to do it well. We've never seen it, but he's a great glove.
And you would imagine, yes, that he'll be fine over there. And, in spots where you're facing a left-hand pitcher, maybe he gets a day off and you don't have to worry about playing him 150 times like you normally would. And if Correa needs a respite at shortstop, well, you've got a guy who's a Gold Glover to fill in now defensively at shortstop. So if Brandon Crawford is willing to move over to third, and I'm not surprised that he is willing to move over to third, the guy is a pro. He's been in baseball long enough to understand the way this goes. Very few players, especially at shortstop, start their career at shortstop and get to play their entire career at shortstop. You talk about Ozzie Smith and Omar Vizquel and Derek Jeter, and very few other players actually go stem to stern, start to finish at shortstop. So he understands, I'm sure this year in particular, with the free agents that were out there, 4 of the 5 biggest offensive free agents are shortstops. So you knew that if you didn't get Aaron Judge, and if they were going to get a shortstop, you probably were going to have to move over.
Yeah, I think and Brandon gets this. The unfortunate part about it, because we're all Brandon Crawford fans. He's been a career Giant. He's been a great Giant. There's no two ways about that. But the truth of the matter is the Giants ended up in a spot where they did not have the ability to worry about his feelings. They just didn't. They did not have. Now, I'll also mention this. We have seen once before Brandon Crawford get challenged. Remember when Gabe Kapler was hired? One of the underbelly things that he said that caught a lot of people off guard, he made reference to some of the analytics that were pointed at Brandon Crawford and that they weren't good, that the base running was off, that it looked like it was declining, that what he was doing with his legs was not tracking in a good direction. And Brandon Crawford could have done two things in that moment. He could have been like, who the hell is this dude? I'm a champion San Francisco Giant. Who's this dude walking in here talking about me declining? Or his other choice was to work out like crazy and come back and show everybody what he could still do. And this was prior to the pandemic, followed by the 107-win season where Brandon Crawford was getting MVP votes. So Crawford has already been challenged by this regime once before and reacted in the perfect way that you would want a teammate to react. No surprise that it's going to happen again.
Well, and if it happens again, if he is able to rise to the challenge and be a solid third baseman, he might elongate his career. Because if he comes out this year and he pouts and he doesn't play well and his numbers decline and it's proven that maybe he's not the Giants' answer or anybody's answer at third base, his career will be a lot shorter. So if he still wants to be a Major League Baseball player with the Giants or any other team, this is a contract year.
Well, and what a beautiful thing, too, by the way. You know that the Giants and a lot of teams now love versatility. So now when Correa needs a day off, if Correa has a nagging injury, if whatever it is, look who can go play shortstop. Brandon Crawford. They didn't have that last year. When Crawford got hurt, they're like, hey, Tyro, can you do this? I know it's not really where you want to be. They were at a deficit at that position. Now, I mean, who's got a better shortstop situation in all of Major League Baseball than the San Francisco damn Giants?
He's like the Jimmy G of shortstops, basically. In case something happens to Correa, who's the Trey Lance in this conversation, although he's far better than Trey Lance in his career. But to that point, you've got an unbelievable backup at the ready. You do feel for Brandon Crawford, though, because every single game he's ever played in Major League Baseball, 1,525 games, he's only ever played shortstop. Yeah. Not even an inning mark of, hey, Boach, let me see what second base feels like. Can I pitch?
Have you ever pitched?
He's never done anything.
No, he's shortstop.
All shortstop all the time.
He's synonymous with it.
4-time Gold Glover, and yet now you're going to have to move over.